The enemy of the working class travels by private jet, not migrant dinghy. Migrants don't deprive the public purse of billions of pounds, that's tax dodgers. Migrants don't drive down wages, that's greedy bosses. Migrants don't buy influence and subvert democracy, that's billionaires. And migrants don't drive down public services, that's the Tory government. In this country, people are a paycheck away from being homeless. We live in precarious situations where people are exploited by their landlords, by their bosses. And when we see people who are fleeing from their homes, we actually have more in common with them than we think, because that could be us. The difference between us and them is luck. The government treats asylum seekers how they would treat normal people if they could get away with it, and that's something that we should remember. Who wouldn't try to find safety and security for their families if they were in the same situation? Like Warson Shire said in her poem, you have to understand that no one puts children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. People are fleeing from war and persecution. They don't want to leave their homes, but they're forced to. And when they do, they have very little that they bring with them. And instead of us showing humanity, compassion and solidarity with people, we are looking at them in a very voyeuristic way, where Sky News and the BBC and other journalists are on boats following these people.
Extraordinary morning we're having on the water, Kate. Just take a look.
How many of you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 men who are on the dinghy. Where are you from? Are you okay?
Are you okay?
Are you okay? Are you all right?
Rather than centering their stories of persecution, of suffering, and allowing them to tell their experiences of why they need a place of safety. The UK is the second largest arms exporter in the world, and we have played a historic role in wars and interventions that have caused people to be displaced and seek a place of safety. We therefore have a responsibility to provide asylum to people who are fleeing. Let's not forget when Jewish refugees were fleeing Nazi Germany, the Daily Mail ran headlines spreading fear and hatred about them. What we see in the media, of course, isn't neutral, and it has shaped public opinion. What that means is that people are more willing to blame our problems, like the fact that our NHS has been absolutely gutted, the fact that our communities haven't been invested in, on migrants, when in fact we should be pointing our fingers directly at a Tory government that holds the working class in complete utter contempt. The UK has the worst COVID-related death toll in Europe. We have now entered the worst recession we have ever seen since records began, and at this moment in time we have a government that wants to focus on a small number of refugees who are fleeing to this country. What that is a clear distraction from us holding the government to account on their catalogue of failures. This government is a government of the 1%, serving the interests of the 1%, and has given tax cuts up to the value of 100 billion by the end of this parliamentary term. This is not a government that is working for ordinary people. The Prime Minister is an Oxford Bullingdon boy. The Chancellor is a private school educated former banker who comes from a family of billionaires. The Conservative Party is backed by 1/3 of UK billionaires. When 6 billionaires in the UK have as much wealth as 13 million people, we know that we need to tax the super rich. On results day, we saw 40% of A-level grades nationally downgraded. Private schools saw a far higher increase in A-star to A grades compared to state schools. This is now going to deprive thousands of working class kids of their future. This isn't a coincidence when we have 65% of the Tory cabinet having gone to private schools. This is the ruling class looking after its own, scapegoating refugees one day and marking up private school kids the next. During the coronavirus pandemic, we have seen our frontline workers put their lives on the line to protect us. In the NHS, in key worker roles across society, the first 4 doctors that died from coronavirus were migrant and Muslim. While we celebrated those people, it's really interesting how weeks later we are seeing a completely different story about the migrants who are fleeing to find safety in the UK. We don't have a migrant crisis. What we have is a crisis of empathy, of solidarity, and of leadership rooted in compassion. People fleeing war and persecution shouldn't be confronted with hostility and warships, but instead safe and legal routes. Our common humanity demands nothing less. It's incredibly rare to see in our media stories which shine a positive light on migrants and provide solidarity for those who are fleeing from war and persecution. So that's why we need to support alternative media like Double Down News on Patreon. Sign up.